Yeah,
We love to
and
inspire.
we did get a couple more, but Matt, you have the list of the things. Why don't you just hit us with one that you think would be fun
Yes,
to
I
look?
have a little list. Oh, so should I just pick one at random, or should I go in any sort of order?
You can pick it at
Um,
random that way because I've seen them all, but that way, if I keep it keeps me on my
on
toes
your toes.
if you just do it that way. But
All
yeah, go
right.
for it.
Well,
Pick us one and we'll answer.
this is a particular preview. I know you guys get into this, or maybe have gotten into this, but maybe a nice recap. From Steve Billness, how did you get into vintage menswear?
Oh wow, Spencer's not here. Um, well, real quick, let me just poll the room here. Did any of you guys get into vintage menswear? Like, I know Ivan. That's the thing. I'll just skip over Ivan, but I'm curious, like
Yeah, I'm here.
Heinrich, Jay. Yeah, I know. Um, I'm curious, like Heinrich or Jason or even you, Matt. Did you guys ever and Sam? Did you guys ever like maybe you weren't like gonna buy like a 30s jacket, but
Yeah.
was
What's
that
the measure of that, right?
right?
No, it was probably most sort of high school or college kids. It's like part cost, part getting something cool. I remember like a lot of my wardrobe in high school was like from vintage shops. But it was not a serious thing, and it was not
Right.
like anything I could now recognize as being guided by anything other than like, oh, look how cool and cheap this cord jacket is. Let's wear that.
Got it. Mhm.
So it was never a sort of sustained interest in vintage. There was more sort of um, like watching older films and having an interest in sort of mod style and this type of thing. That was sort of an
Okay. Okay.
it's
That's interesting.
aesthetically registered, but I didn't. I never at any point tried to sort of emulate
Emulated the styles.
get that particular thing. That wasn't
Right.
really possible. So that didn't. It was only much later that I sort of had a more required an interest in sort of more technical aspects of getting like the exact thing of something that became important. That's
Right.
probably just a few years old, in fact.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Ivan,
I feel like, yeah.
I was gonna go through the list, but Matt, what did you want to
Well,
respond
I was
to?
just gonna say, I feel like a lot of us probably, obviously, like we like some of these older details from the past, and so we go to vintage not only to get some of those details, but
Right.
obviously for like a cheaper price. But has anyone just like besides like that, has anyone like gone further to like be parts of these like vintage communities or these forums, like get into these lists and like these
Oh yeah.
really be intense about it? Like, who are those people? And maybe talk a bit about that experience.
Yeah. Well, let's ask Ivan now. Ivan,
Yeah.
you're in New York. You've been around like Sean Crowley. You've probably seen some of the people out there. I mean, you're also younger than they are. Just like how I'm younger than some of the LA people. But I'm
Right.
curious, briefly, because I know we have a couple of questions to get through. But
A
what's
lot of
your
show.
what's yours?
Well, around like 5 years ago, I started watching Doctor Who, and I got really like, yeah, I really got into the clothes, and I wanted to cosplay
Nice.
that. So I did a lot of research about clothes, and like the Doctor Who is like very much into like the tailoring side. So I went into that sort of realm.
Okay.
And which realm
Yeah.
was this?
Wait, 5 years ago, like that you were like 14.
Yeah.
Gotta start somewhere.
And Jason, what's
and-
the issue?
Sorry. I keep forgetting that he's only like 18.
Jason, did you ever get into any of that kind of stuff?
Sort of.
Okay.
Similar to Heinrich. I mean, I liked the way vintage looked. But like, I grew up in rural Massachusetts. Thrift stores didn't have that kind of stuff. Thrift stores just had, like t-shirts from the 90s.
Okay.
And I don't like the 90s on most
I
fronts.
hate them.
I fucking hate the 90s. So like,
Weren't you born in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
You could be
Okay.
born and hate it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I always, but I also never liked the modern. I didn't, whatever. I didn't, it was sort of just in pursuit of something that felt cool and that felt right. That
Right.
fit in with what I liked.
Yeah.
And fit in with how I felt I presented myself, which is why
Yeah.
I try to find a common ground between the two. I like the vintage details.
Right.
But like on my suits, I still like I like a short leg on the suit, which obviously is not a vintage detail, but it has a 2-inch cuff on it. It's kind
Right.
of I
Right.
like blending the two. I never really
Of course. Yeah.
I never really like went after I have to be I love 1920, so I have to be in a 1920 suit, or like that sort of thing. I still
Faithful
buy
to
vintage things. Like I bought that vintage duffel coat, which is
Yeah, we all
like
do.
from
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
it's from like the 70s or the 80s, I think.
Mhm.
And so yeah, there's vintage pieces that I like, but I always find I'll still I'll get like if I find like a vintage like pair of pants or something, I still will shorten them and get them to look
You'll
the
make
way
it your own.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Very
I don't
cool.
I don't look for vintage and then just wear it
Vintage
exactly
finds me.
how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, what about you briefly? Because I know we got some questions from Guilty Free Gaming I want to address as well. So
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
we
lots
really
of
want
stuff.
to hear
No,
from you.
I know we
yeah,
also talked about your stuff in the what do you call it? In the bonus episode, the first bonus roundtable, we kind of talked about your style very briefly in there
Suf-
too. So if any of you
suffice it
guys
to
are in the
say,
Discord, yeah, check it out.
yeah. Vintage is like I always thought of custom first before vintage because I liked having like the
Interesting.
exact details I
Right.
wanted and the fabric. But then I was like, oh, but vintage, you could get some of those details and like get the general gist of what you want at a much cheaper price, and it'll fit you fine. So that's why that is my introduction to vintage, and I still like it for some things, obviously, but and things you just cannot get today. I think that's an appeal, but otherwise mainly not overdoing it, and I've never really been a part of any like specific groups or forums about it and don't really do that. But when I do need to get a new thing, I always like a swath of people like and getting advice about it, like learning about berets and all that. So
Right.
yeah, that's kind of my stance with vintage.
I know
Vintage.
MJ's only thing with vintage was going to my 18th birthday where we dressed up for Great Gatsby and he had to wear a boater because I made him wear a boater.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
everyone wore a boater.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I had a bunch. I had a bunch of boaters because I collected them for different outfits, and they were fairly cheap on eBay, at least at
Yeah.
the time, right? And so
Boater, I
when
hardly
it
know
came
her.
to my 18th birthday, I was
Well, I
like,
was
hey,
gonna
if
say
anyone needs to wear a hat, here you go.
Yep.
No,
that
instead of
party was
collecting
called
boaters,
Boner
you
for
should have been
Boaters.
collecting booties.
Oh.
Look at that boot.
Ethan,
Yeah.
Wear a
Ethan,
booty,
at 18 didn't know what that
booty on my
was.
head.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what booties. I don't know what ass was.
I don't know about booties.
I don't know
Sam,
about ass.
Sam, real quick, did you have any experience with vintage menswear at all? Did it ever intrigue you?
Probably not so much in the sense of like true vintage. I've got a friend here in
Right.
Adelaide who's really into it, so probably most of my exposure has been just him and his collection and seeing what kind of stuff
Right.
he's got, his details.
Mhm.
I've always maintained a professional interest in it because I work in the industry and the old school
Right.
details are really cool.
Right.
But I've never gone actively after trying to buy that stuff. I'm a big dude. I don't usually fit vintage stuff. People were smaller back then, so I just
Yes, they were.
appreciate it from afar rather than
Yeah.
try to wear it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess to answer Matt's question, yeah. So for me, obviously you guys know I was into vintage menswear. There actually is a couple of people who are new to like the Discord or whatever, or even to the stream, where they don't know I mean, they knew from stuff. I'm like, oh, I liked wearing like vintage sack jackets, but they didn't know I collected and wore 1930 suits. I wore I wore 40s pants, I wore fedoras, and I still wear fedoras and wide leg pants. But back then it was more so in that vein of not lifestyle, but because I just couldn't fathom the idea that a modern maker could make what I was looking for. We talk about this a lot. About how I like wide leg pants, but obviously, if you as a like when I get into vintage menswear, like at 17 years old. Oh no, maybe not. That's maybe start collecting it about like 18, 19 years old. Um, it's going to a small university in the middle of the desert, like an hour outside of LA. You have a local like H&M and Forever 21, so you don't see that kind of shit, right? You're surrounded by the guys wearing the blue suits with the tan shoes from anywhere, J. Crew, Banana Republic, H&M, you name it. So vintage was a way for me to get those specific details. And then as time went on, well, let me go back and say I also was in those forums. I was on the Fedora Lounge, more so on the Facebook group because Facebook is cooler than a forum and a thread kind of a place. Like I never got into forums other than like Neopets forums, but that's like way back in the
Right.
day.
Right.
Well,
Honestly,
but
Frontier Wanderer says, "How does one find style vintage when one is 6'5" and thick fit?" But he spelled thick wrong. He spelled it
well,
correctly.
that's a
with
good
the
question.
two
I mean,
Cs. Coming off of
that's
Sam's comment.
Yeah,
I think
probably
I'm
very rare.
Right.
It's I was gonna say it's pretty rare. And I think I'm just like All just talks about this all the time, or at least before. He's not gone, he's not dead, but he's
Okay.
just not here. But
Anyway.
but we talk about how lucky we are to live in LA, like despite it being kind of like a quote like a style wasteland compared to like New York, London, whatever. The amount of vintage you find here, whether it is like vintage stack jackets to 1930s, 40s suits, to workwear milsurp, it's pretty plentiful because obviously a lot of productions are done here. Sometimes costuming shops go out of business, they sell off their stuff or they give it away. So you're able to find all the kind of stuff.
Give away now.
And so as like because like I said, I was in the vintage community, I would go to like backyard barbecues. I would go to swing dancing stuff, but I wouldn't dance. I would just kind of go for the company, just to be around other people. I go to Dapper Day. There are a couple guys who are not the traditional size for vintage, right? They're not like super slim Fred Astaire types or whatever. But because there's so much, they were able to find a suit that fits them. Sometimes, obviously, they would have to wear like a 60s or a 70s suit, but then they'd still wear like a spear point collar and a 30s tie to kind of give it that edge. A lot of them would wear like Polo Ralph Lauren or double RL. So there's a lot of ways to kind of get around that. But 6'5", right? That's really tall and big. That one might be more about getting it custom made.
Yeah,
I
Ethan's
think.
getting jealous.
Yeah, I wish I was
Man, I
6'5".
hate that I can find things easier.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's I'm sure
Do
they'll be
we
able
have
to
any
find some
insight
stuff.
from anyone else here about who's a little bit taller, maybe about if they have
Yeah,
had
I'm
ways to
5'8". I'm
navigate?
on the short end of 5'8". I'm like everything fits me pretty much. So
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
5'7" and like 2/4. I
Yeah.
get half. I guess that's half.
yeah, we're
No,
probably
it's-
close
We're
to the
it's
same
all
not
size.
easy.
Irish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give or
it's
take
not
some.
easy. It's above all, like 90% of vintage I cannot wear because of just sleeve length.
Yeah.
I mean, that just
Sleeve,
disqualifies anything.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's the one thing that just anything that's it is a miracle if anything has if anything has like 25 inches or more on the sleeve on a true vintage blazer or something. You can almost never find that.
Right.
So yeah, similar thing. You get 80s polo instead of a 50s or 60s thing. Yeah, that's right.
Have you tried like getting an arm shortening surgery? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, where they sort of
I've had a couple of people do that.
yeah?
break your bones and then
They
Yeah,
like
you
just,
get
just break your
shorter.
arm, yeah, and then just put, and then I think if you put your wrist next to the broken bone in your arm, I think they'll fuse together or
Right.
something, right? Is that how this works? I'm not a doctor, so I
Someone
But the
tell
doctor
the
was a woman.
doctor.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just play one on TV.
I want to go back up here to get before we move on from this vintage thing. Guilty for Gaming says, I'll admit Ethan's the first one that shop vintage and secondhand with good fits, and this is not. Thank you, by the way, but I think it's more often than not the people who are into like period accurate vintage, who are not associated with like the menswear industry, because I think that like people like Scott Frazier have great like they look very natural in their vintage and vintage accurate like trousers and everything. But most people who are in the vintage community are not photogenic, and they tend to like they don't not just they don't take a picture of, but they don't act as natural like as Jake Grantham or something. And it's probably because
They
they don't
pose
know
like the old
who Grantham is.
Victorians would. They stare
Yeah,
bug-eyed
or,
at the camera.
they're just older guys, right? And when older guys take a picture, or older people, right, they kind of like pose a little bit more, right? They kind of put this they affect this kind of stance. And for me, right, as being younger, being on the internet, I was able to see like all these different kinds of things, right? So my early pictures were very like influencer style, like I'm walking and buttoning my jacket, I'm checking my cuff, but I was wearing period accurate vintage, so that kind of helped put an I guess a name for myself in that way in that community as like, oh, this young guy does it, but he's like more savvy about it. And then of course getting into like classic menswear with like again Drake style stuff and getting into photography, it all kind of helped. So if I wasn't this photogenic and I wasn't my own photographer, I'm pretty sure I would not have any kind of platform because I would probably stayed in the Fedora Lounge. What are you wearing today? Thread. So
Yeah, but to like defend these older vintage people, like unlike Jake Grantham, who can replace his clothes, like these vintage guys, they can't because it's only like one of something.
oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So
That's probably
lots of
yeah.
good
They're probably a little bit
vintage
more
discussion.
careful. Yeah, yeah. Do you have another question, Matt?
Yeah, I do. This is from Tiz Pedro. Would you ever pursue clothing as a career?
Ooh, this is kind of fun.
No.
Before I answer mine, does anyone else want to go? No. Heinrich, you've had a career already. Did it ever occur to you to like work in it, or did you ever do retail?
No.
Okay,
No,
fair
I
enough.
mean, no,
Oh,
I mean,
why
I
is
don't
that?
know what that would be. I mean, um, ships, and I don't even
It's
know.
like owning a boat, right? Instead of just being on a
No,
boat. to, like,
actually,
take care
there
of
is
it.
something here because I do listen to some of the podcasts of people who have gone through menswear and so on, and it is like a very different career path. Like,
Right.
especially like in Europe, so anyone who has like any attachment to like Savile Row, Europe, or something like that, more often than not, they are not college graduates. They are either trade school graduates that can get sort of placed or sucked into some kind of apprenticeship or another. Sometimes they have a design school or an architecture background,
Right.
but on
Mm-hmm.
the whole of it, that's a very, very different type of thing, right? So there is like an aspect there that once you have become sort of a much stronger in Europe than in the US, once you sort of taken an academic path, there really isn't any way back to the trades, even if there would be like an extraordinary thing to do. I think
Right.
like the numbers of people who would do something like that, have a career change in that manner, it doesn't really happen. Is like sociologically predetermined in that way from age 12, 13 on. You're not going to be a professional. The only other way is if people who sort of acquire a hobby or a deep interest or a deep, real, genuine enthusiasm and then open their own store or something. I have a couple of examples of that, but not really. That doesn't really happen, and so it's not really been like a real option. You can't.
Got it.
It's
Yeah,
start
makes
somewhere,
sense.
and when that starts, always been buffed, and now it's for other reasons. It's very difficult. So,
Of
and
course,
also,
yeah.
yeah.
It's yeah. I got as someone who I'm sure me and Jason and Sam could talk about it a little bit. But Ivan, how about you? I know that you were looking to work at least at a store, while you're in college or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, I've not had a job yet. I do want a job in menswear, but like hearing the stories of people who hearing the stories of people
And
who
what might
already
those
work
be?
in the industry, like it's
Yep.
not as attractive as a job as it might seem on the outside.
Of
Right.
course. I'll talk about that in a sec. How about Jason? I know I could talk about some of the other stuff, but Jason, why don't you briefly go through, because I know you work now. You work in it, so.
Yeah, I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it,
On the front
unfortunately.
Thickies.
And then it's funny, the topic Heinrich brings up where he says, most people they kind of choose a path and that's it. So like I went to film school and
Yeah, you
hated
did.
it. And then I moved to New York City, took a job at Bloomingdale's, and then just happened to luck into meeting people who piqued my interest in it all. And so like since I moved here, obviously I moved jobs like a few times within menswear to land I'm doing now, and then now I'm starting my own thing.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely that's like exactly what like Ivan says. So it's nothing what it looks. I mean, it looks so nice on the outside, right? You're around nice clothing, you're talking to people who make clothing, but then when you're in it, you realize it's like it's really mentally taxing, right? Especially here in the U.S., where a lot of people, a lot of the brands, right, are licensed out. and dealing with wholesale people who own licenses and not dealing with like companies who actually make, design products, is a completely ridiculous thing to have to do.
Right. Totally.
Like wholesale vendors, who have licenses and just, put different labels on the same shitty products are like some of the worst people to have to talk to.
Right.
And they're always the ones who think they have like the greatest fucking product.
Yeah.
The amount of time the people who own the license for like Ralph Lauren, send me emails telling me how great their product is
Ooh, boy.
They're like, oh, we can't wait to see you guys. We'll come see, you have to come
Right.
see us at, at Project or whatever show.
And you
I'm
say,
like,
"I can wait."
no. I'm like, I'm not.
I'll wait.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to set up an appointment. We're not looking at your product. Like, this new Ralph Lauren. I'm like, stop saying you're Ralph Lauren. I'm like, I'm not stupid.
Yeah. But what about you, Matt? I mean, I know you worked at Brooks Brothers, but I mean, that wasn't your career goal, right?
I was like, because like when I was figuring out all the
RIP
like
if it
Drake's
was.
R.I.P. Brooks, both the brand and just my experience with them. But no, back when I was discovering Drake's and everything like that, 2018, going in the fall of 2018, I was like, oh, so cool, like that. And like when I was when I got the job a year later, it was just like, oh my god, now it's like I'm doing a version of that. This is kind of cool. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to do this as a job and all that stuff, but like, oh, how soon the glitz and glamour fades, and just like all the mostly, this is mostly with any job. It's like, the real work is not always as fun as just the lifestyle parts of it. So no, I would never I mean, there are fun aspects, obviously, just like being even a part-time, just like salesperson, but just like, ugh, I'm not like very handsy or the making all the adjustments and the tailoring. I know, I just
Right.
or even just like talking to people, convincing them what they aren't interested in or it won't work for them, just to sell product
Right.
or cards and all that.
Mm-hmm.
If your heart's not in it, even if there's like a loose connection with menswear. So
Well, yeah.
no, I much prefer this as sort of like an engagement and a hobby and as a supplement to my life as opposed to
Right.
forcing my life
You gotta
into it.
sell those credit cards, though, Matt. We need more.
Yeah, we need more
I'm
snaps.
proud. You know what? I am proud that I sold bagel credit cards for my time at Brooks Brothers.
MJ,
happy about that.
what about you? I know because you work at Uniqlo.
No.
All right, moving on.
Straight to the point.
You can tell. I mean, you can tell the chat what you're studying and what your career goal is, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to school for computer information systems, so not necessarily directly related. Well, like the menswear itself, like the clothing and the designing and stuff like that, probably zero relation to any computer
Right.
science. Possibly the business if it if things work out that way, but I'm not looking for a particular menswear or fashion related career.
Right.
Yeah.
What
I
about
mean,
you, Sam? Or sorry, MJ, keep
I
going.
was gonna say Matt pretty much said it. It's a hobby. It's fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it can still
Sam,
be fun since we're not making it like we're forcing it. It's just this thing we get to participate in. I think it can be enjoyable in that way.
Yeah, you guys
Sam,
are all hitting the nail on the head there. I think probably a lot of the attraction that people on the outside feel to getting a job in menswear is like, oh, well, maybe this is the easy way to get those super premium clothes and all that, and the lifestyle, obviously. But as you guys have already covered, the lifestyle is just what you see on Instagram. It's a job like
It's
every
not our
other
calls
job.
and cocktails.
That's it. Like 99% of it is doing the slog like you would in any other trade. And as far as the attraction being like, oh, well, maybe it's an easier way to get the premium stuff as a hobbyist, you're just going to be getting it in to sell it to someone else. You're never going to afford to do it yourself.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, if you like
Yeah.
if you're like a hobbyist, it's not going to be fun to work in a store.
That's it. If you are really into menswear and you love it as a passion and hobby thing, and you really want to like help spread that to other people, then aim for a career in menswear. But if you just really want to be able to wear all that nice stuff and live the lifestyle and do all the good life shit, get a really high paying job that allows you to be able to afford it as a client.
Yeah.
So that brings it to my answer now. So, that is everyone's been very apt about all this. I initially thought I would get into clothing as a career, not to design myself, but I always thought that my skills were useful in like helping either build a brand or in service of a brand, whether that's marketing, copywriting, photography, or whatever. And it was fine for a while. Obviously, we talked a lot about the lifestyle, and while it's true that's all on Instagram, it's also just kind of who you work for, and that's kind of like with any job. I
There's
don't want to take
number
it.
to work for.
Yeah. We because it's like any job, like your experience will depend on what your boss is like and how your company operates. That's just the truth of it. So at Drake's, I've heard Michael Hill is a nice guy. He visits quite a bit. The Drake's guys are really nice. It doesn't matter if it's the new ones or the old ones. They were all very nice. They all everyone loves Drake. Style Forum loves Drake, so they enjoy a little bit of notoriety from that, right? And Drake's is very good on photographing their own shop guys, so they get a little bit of clout from it. So and they have a really big emphasis on making it look as natural as possible. So of course, if you work for that place, you're gonna get that kind of thing. But let's
Right.
say you work at like your local J. Crew, where of course your models are models and it's handled by corporate, and you work at the J. Crew in the mall. You're not gonna get that same kind of power or lifestyle that you get from that. Just like with tailors, yeah, it's the same. If you work for Anderson and Shepherd, yeah, you'll probably be, if you're a really good fitter, you'll probably be sent all over the world to do client fittings. And maybe if you have
Right.
and more often than not, obviously, people should know that trunk shows are like 3 days, and you're only there for 3 days, and you work the whole day, and you barely have a time to get out of your hotel. That's the real life answer of that. But
Right.
maybe they give you
The sweet
maybe they give
life
you
of
an
the I
extra
can tell
day.
you.
That's a great
And
thing,
so,
actually. I should point out, if anyone is really interested in getting into that life, read the book Bespoke Savile Row Ripped and Smoothed by Richard Anderson,
mhm.
because he covers all that so well. And like anyone who's like, oh, I really want to be a tailor, like there's a huge resurgence of that. Of
Yep.
people being like, yeah, I really want to be a tailor. How do I get a tailoring apprenticeship? Anyone thinking of that, read that guy's book. Read about the constant day in, day out, 12-hour work days and all the shit he ate for years, making really cool stuff at Huntsman while wearing a horrible olive green Marks and Spencer suit to work
Yep.
every day for the
I've heard
first 2
that. Yep.
years. Like,
Absolutely.
there's a big disconnect, and he tells the whole story so well and so vividly and so realistically. Like, it's a great eye opener. If you still
Yeah.
want in after that, then go for it. Sorry to cut in, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why my thing was to kind of get into like the business aspect behind it. But like
Right.
that whole thing was just, unless you're there on the ground floor, they're never gonna trust you to get to that stage. And that's why a lot of menswear in general is, some people stay at places working forever, but I think everyone who gets into it tends to want to make their own thing. Eventually they're going to make enough skills, they're going to meet enough suppliers and enough tailors, enough mills to eventually make their own thing. You see that with Brycelands, you see that
Yeah.
with anybody, any of these new things. They're always come from someplace else, which is cool. But if that's not what you want to do, then you shouldn't get into it, because otherwise you'll be a salesperson forever. And hey, if you love sales and you're good at it and you can make a living off of it, that's fine. But if you want to be as steady as possible, then you might as well get a steady job somewhere else, so that way you can at least,
For
as you said,
sure.
afford those things. Um,
Yeah.
so long story short, I did that for a while. I couldn't get to where I wanted to be. I don't have a desire to make anything of my design my own clothing. I also, as you heard in the influencer one, I have no desire to constantly be reviewing a lot of different stuff. I don't want to make that into my career. I don't feel like I want to be a style journalist in the sense of like Alex Petkovich or whatever, who it's cool when you work with these people and you basically report for like the Rob Report and Financial Times and all that kind of stuff. You write about whatever's new happening menswear. Didn't really care about that, because you guys know I am super into my own thing and the people I meet myself, and not who the big dogs are. So it just didn't make sense at the end of the day. And so we moved on to something else. We did put a question. I'm just going to say it because I saw it. Matt hasn't seen it yet. But they asked what I do now, and I work now for a gaming agency. I work on campaigns with YouTube gamers and streamers. So that is what I do now, and I can't move out yet, but I can afford more clothes now. Working like I said, working at Ascot Chang, it wasn't bad, but again, a bespoke suit's like $2,500. You're not making that much money there, even and we didn't have enough for commission anyway because we saw like one person a day. So now I can I can go back and buy shirts from Ascot Chang, instead of waiting for like my one shirt a year allowance or whatever the hell it was. So that
Well,
is
speaking of books,
yeah.
Pedro Mai says, when are you going to write a sad book?
Oh, that's fun. That's actually a very good question. I actually,
Thank you.
and MJ knows this. Last year, I started. Last year's 2020. Okay, 2019.
Yep.
I toyed with the
2020 's
idea
hindsight.
of making like a small little zine, of people that I've met because I've gone to like Tokyo to meet like Ethan Newton. I've like met a couple of like style form guys like Ian Anderson, from Squad Baller, as you guys know. A
Ballin'.
couple of other guys and everything. So I thought, okay, these guys are like my friends. I want to focus on people that I've just kind of hung out with. Yeah, Ethan Newton's cool, but what
Right.
about like the guy in Japan that messaged me and said, hey, you want to go grab some sushi and we'll walk around like Shinjuku. I'm like, hell yeah.
Sushi.
I want to do
As
stuff
we
like that,
call
kind
it.
of like this guy by Jamie Ferguson, something along those lines, sartorialist, whatever. But like more of a zine, something that I could self-publish easily, and just write whatever I want.
Right.
So I thought, okay, 2020, I'll go to New York and I'll hang out with Jason, and I'll
Hey,
meet up
that's
with all these
me.
people. And then Corona hit, and so couldn't
Ah,
do that.
Corona time.
And it's one of those things where I kind of want to make the book all new pictures because I tend to have this thing where I'm impatient every time I meet some, just like Chris, right? I met Chris for the first time like 4 weeks ago, and I wrote a whole blog post about him and what we did when we hung out. And it's like, okay, if I were to do this, I gotta stop doing that. I gotta save all those stories and all those anecdotes and then do it in the book. But I think whenever I get to that stage, it might happen. And now that I have a new job, I have more financial freedom
Yeah.
a little
you got a
bit to kind of
new
explore
job.
that.
This is
So
a good
yeah,
incentive. Meet Ethan, and you'll get a shoot and an editorial. But
you just
if
gotta
you're
be
gonna
good
save
though.
it for the zine,
Yeah.
but you have to be good.
Yeah. What
That's
do you
that
what do you
actually
think
happened.
what do you think the MJ project is?
Despite knowing MJ for 20 years, he hasn't been the subject of a thing yet.
Yeah, it's
But
like
Are
it's
you just cloning yourself slowly but surely?
I mean,
I
hey,
think this
Adam
ties
did
in
that.
great to this ties in great to this next question from Jason. How dare you? So I'd like to get into how exactly you dare. If we could
we
break that
do.
down. What are
We
the
do.
ways that
We
you?
do
Oh,
dare.
so you do in fact dare. Okay.
Triple dog, actually.
Oh,
So you
wow.
like your?
D's.
I can't say that.
Yeah.
Bow, bow, bow,
Okay.
bow.
What's next, Matt?
Speaking of raw, this comes from Henkel Wallace. Raw denim, specifically raw pants.
Question mark.
Okay. I was like,
Question
what?
mark.
And then, okay, yeah. So he means like raw denim jeans. Cause I mean, there are raw denim like shirts, there are raw denim jackets and everything.
Yeah, then he
Um,
said
I don't know.
specifically
And
raw
people, I
pants.
mean, I think Heinrich and I'm sure some other guys can fill in because I don't really wear a lot of like denim jackets. I like the idea of them. I have a vintage Lee 101J that was I mean, it's nice, it's cool, but I don't. It wasn't raw when I had it, and I'm sure Spencer was here; he'd be talking about that too. But I mean, it's not something I think about. But anyway, he's asking about jeans. Yeah, I prefer raw denim, selvage jeans. We have a couple of streams about it. I think we talked about it a couple times. I know because Jason said he doesn't fuck with that.
What? What don't I fuck with?
Selvage like raw denim selvage jeans.
Oh, right. Yeah, it just seems
Yeah,
like way too much work.
But
yeah.
you
No,
like
I
your
mean,
cowboy cut.
I do like the cowboy cuts, yeah. I'm a
yeah.
cowboy, baby.
You are.
Baby.
But yeah, no, I think it's like the go-to for jeans. I mean, now if with the whole rise of dad jeans, and like
Rise.
vintage 90s Levi's, I don't think you need to have selvage jeans, raw denim selvage jeans. But if you want to fade them yourself, and you want to start it out from like the dark indigo, then that's the only way to do it. And then it's also like it's a little bit of like an art form, or like a what do you call it? Like a craft, like right? Like you soak it, you sit on it when it's wet, so it dries to your body and everything. Those are if you're into doing that and you're literally making these clothes your own, then yeah, go for it. I don't know. What do you guys think about raw denim
I also think
pants?
that like having like high like salvage denim, like just like all that, like the Drake's high rise that I have, like there's a lot of pressure too, especially if it is like a more expensive garment. Just like okay, you're eventually gonna wash it and then it'll affect it that way, and you have to be careful how you do it. But then you buy like $40 cowboy cut, and it just like seems like so non-committal. Just like you could just wear them and live in them and not worry about it. So there's that aspect
Yeah.
of it, just like not having to baby it. And then the whole idea of breaking in salvage is like not babying it, I know. But in terms of just like not caring, like, oh God,
Yeah, it's
I washed it
different. It's
this way.
different.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see the appeal though, but
Mhm.
like again, it's getting to that point of where you like I guess in your head where you want it to be after wearing it and soaking it and stuff like that versus
Right, right.
buying a pair that's already as close as it can be to what you already want. Like it
I'm also lazy because it's like, you buy clothes and it's just like, this sounds like work. I just want to wear pants. I don't want to
Well,
do
it is
all this.
Right.
workwear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, titular workwear.
I work at a desk, so
But
most of the time.
you
Yeah,
do
that's
work.
something that Spencer has talked about actually, where it's this with the whole rise of like the lumber sexual, all these all
Mhm.
these cool like IT guys
Yeah.
wearing like salvage like jeans and like workwear jackets. I mean, because
That's
not all T
me.
guys are like super nerds, but it's like we've come so far from the original the original
And
intended
got so
use,
far.
and we don't. That's not that important. I mean, I think that clothes are like I don't think that this might be a hard take, like a hot take, but like there was like that whole thing of like, oh, like chore coats are reclaiming the working class, and it's like it's trivializing their struggle or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know, that's not really.
It's
It's a
just a
pretty
jacket.
far
It's
reach,
a
and one that I doubt would go past the
Yeah,
vintage or
Heinrich,
menswear
I
community.
see your light. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, not on the working class stuff, not really. But on salvage jeans, it's a young
Yeah.
man's game. I think
Mm,
hmm.
salvage
Yeah.
jeans are. I mean, I'm a fan, but salvage jeans are truly to maximize that thing you have to have. If you own more than three pair of pants, it's not for you. In the sense you can't get it done in a time where it needs to be done. What I mean is, I had my first pair of salvage jeans, and I bought them. I didn't even know that's what it was.
oh,
I
okay.
picked them out of a sales bin at Banana Republic for some reason, and that's what happened. But I had not that many pair of pants at that time. I was in graduate school and I was bike commuting. I went on road trips in a cheap Honda where I didn't have enough leg room, so uh, there was a lot of action for that pair of jeans, and they look pretty great. I have no idea how to treat them, and that's where salvage jeans are at its best, when you actually
Hmm.
don't know that much and you don't have too many other pairs of pants. I have now almost retired that pair, so I have went through all kinds of other stuff to recreate that experience, and I find that I can't really do it. I can't get close to that maiden voyage any longer. So um,
Right.
Right.
I have now gotten rid of most of my other attempts. I still have a pair of Iron Hearts that I've not given up on. That's going to take forever
Okay.
to get anything out of them. But I have now bought salvage denim that is not raw for the first time,
Okay.
because I can no longer put in that sustained effort like that. So but it's for that time in your life when you sleep in your jeans, not because you want to, but because it happens. That's when salvage jeans is on.
I feel
So
that
that was my
non-raw.
eyes open.
Fucking one wash or nothing for me. I do not want to deal with shrinkage.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is like a
Yeah.
real.
No one's doing shrinkage.
So like,
And
I've had
people-
I've heard.
custom-made jeans, and I had them wash the fabric once before making the jeans, so that I knew the measurements that I provided would fit. I wouldn't get
Mhm.
something that fits and then wash it once to find all of a sudden it's not how I want it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's one of those things where I don't think I need salvage, but it's the only way to get that like super dark indigo color. Just like how for for shoes, shell cordovan is the dark way to get that matte, like purplish brown, which is unfortunate to get just the color. And I mean, yeah, there's like the whole dyeing thing, but of course there's just other qualities to shell cordovan and also the selvage like raw denim that you just can't get from a washed pair, like that color uniformity and everything. And of course mine have faded since then, but I think I also don't think that any blue jean that I have that wasn't actually, I don't think I own any non-blue jean salvage unless other than like light wash and khaki. All of mine were salvage raw denim.
I think this kind
But
of
yeah,
segues into AMA Superstar
cool.
Tiz Pedro's question. Tips for what to look for when you're starting to look for, he says vintage pieces, but even new stuff. I think that like not a lot of people here do this, but I think for people who are trying to, whatever you want to call it, like a minimalist or capsule wardrobe, or just like less pieces, not having a huge wardrobe, I think maybe having like for like a denim, like maybe some indigo salvage denim, because like kind of like Heinrich was saying, if you're not going to have like a lot of pants and you want to get a lot of wear out of it, maybe getting something that's hardier like that. But if you're
Absolutely.
not planning, if you're going to be fleshing out, a wardrobe eventually, maybe getting something not as committal as something like that that you might not even need. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be vintage, but just kind of what people's thoughts are on things that, like, I know it varies, but just like what you would think of to go for when you're
Right.
starting your wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Jason, it looks like you said something, so why don't you start
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, really, when I'm looking for things, I don't actually do that much like shopping because a lot of the stuff, I just want to do my own take on certain things that I've already seen. And I don't really, yeah, unfortunately, I work like a lot, not only for like the store, but then as I'm working for as I'm starting my own brand, it's like, okay, well, I shouldn't be shopping and buying like a bunch of stuff because I should be using that money to do samples. But like when I do look for things, I just look for things that just give me. It's all about feeling for me, both tactical feeling, but then had the item has to give me something when I see it, not just like if it doesn't look good folded, then I don't even really typically like look at it. Like I won't buy
We
it
talk
unless like
we talk about the bad side of impulse buys and all that stuff, but I feel like that impulse is that sort of kinetic energy that you get when you look at something and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So
yeah, it's all
that's
about
something like a
presentation.
sensation to trust. Yeah,
Yeah.
presentation. Okay.
Which is why I have a hard time at like thrift stores because it's like it's just, almost like sensory overload, right? When there's
Yeah.
like a dozen racks and they're all jammed, and it's like
I love me some rack.
I don't have time to go in and like look at everything here,
No.
and it's always presented and they always look like shit. Thrift stores or even like consignment stores never want to like look good for some reason. They're like throw it on a wire hanger and jam it. you know,
F's in
and
the chat
so
for all that knitwear on wire hangers. Forever
exactly they
getting
can't
warped.
they can't even
Well,
look
so
at it.
what do you start for then? Like, what do starting out? Like, what do you
Uh,
recommend?
I mean, if you have them, I recommend like planned out things that I wanted to wear. Like
Okay.
when I was looking up whether it be on like Pinterest or old magazines and stuff, I was like, okay, this is the things I wanted to wear, and I went out and looked for pieces that would kind of get me there, and then serve as sort of inspiration. Because I don't care too much about uh certain like vintage details. Like if something doesn't have like pick stitching on it, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
Um, so I really just looked for feeling, and so obviously the first few pieces I looked for were like navy blazers, which is something I still don't even have because I could never find one that gave me anything.
Okay.
Which I guess is the point of it, right? It just
Yeah.
works with everything, but doesn't have to give you anything. But Yeah, and I'm in such a weird place because I see, obviously a lot of the, stuff I see it directly from like the vendors or directly from like
Right.
the makers. So a lot of the stuff that I see, most people don't end up seeing,
Mm-hmm.
like like the velvet suit, right? Belvest didn't make that ready to wear. They made a couple samples and realized this isn't a good idea. And then
So you
Right.
wouldn't recommend velvet suit for your starter suit?
Yeah.
No, definitely not a starter suit. Maybe like a second
Well,
suit though.
can you clarify what the question was again, Matt? Or was it just what you
Well,
starting
yeah,
like what you
yeah, it was just like pieces to look for when you're getting started. They said vintage, but it
Okay.
could be newer pieces, modern pieces.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
In
That's
no,
that
it's
okay.
no
case,
problem.
all corduroy.
Yep, that's all you need.
Well, I think okay,
Anyone
this
else?
is always such a loaded question because everyone's starting point and context is so different.
Right.
Like sometimes like in your head you want to look like Ivy, right? Or sometimes you want to like look vintage or want to get to Milsurp. So saying that, without having that baseline, it's going to be really tough because it might end up bricking some outfits or bricking some
Right.
purchases based on that. So first step, figure out what you like. We say that all the time. Figure out what your style is, what you want to look like, and then number two, then it can work from there. I mean, I think that chinos works with everything, and then
Yeah.
you alter that you alter the cut and the details based on what aesthetic. If you want Ivy, try and get like a slimmer fit, right? You
Yeah.
want something more modern, try and get something with like side tabs and pleats, or you want Milsurp, go for some wide World War II reproduction ones. So there's always gonna be stuff like that. The only thing I could think of that can go with everything is nice navy blazer, good blue stripe OCVD because I like that. It can be dressed up or down as opposed to white or solid
Right.
blue, which I think is a little too maybe not boring, but a little too plain and a little too like it doesn't let you have a lot of
Yeah.
personality because like blue stripe Oxford, right? You wear that with a black knit tie, perfect for work or solid tie, whatever. But if
Yeah.
you do a white shirt, right? You wear like everything will look like you're wearing a white shirt, because you can't. It's
Right.
really hard to like pattern mix
Yeah,
or
I
whatever.
barely wear a plain white shirt.
Right.
I always have to like make an intentional outfit just to do it because
Right.
it's
You
not
can't.
something
I
that
don't
I
just grab it, which is odd because for
exactly.
most people, that's exactly what they think. All their shirts are white, and they just grab them and they go, "Oh, everything's fine." But
Yeah,
here we
Well,
are.
the
absolutely.
difference, like the plain
they
and the
burn.
stripes, is like plain white is office drone, and the stripes is like someone who's actually thought about it, thought about
Right.
the
Yeah.
purchase.
Yeah.
It's a
And they're
signifier.
both, and for most people, again, me and Kiyoshi, we're gonna have a stream on this, like about formality levels and everything. For most regular working people who are like an accountant, like or just a regular analyst, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter white or blue striped shirt. Maybe if you're the boss, maybe if you're a lawyer, yeah, it probably does. But for the majority of people, it's not gonna matter. And and
If you're the boss,
if you
it
like,
doesn't matter. You choose what everyone else wears by what you wear.
Yeah.
Even if
There's a
you're
yeah.
an
check around it.
anagrapist, you're good.
Graph check.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where you got to find out what your starter pack is, or what your capsule wardrobe is, and you'll know
Right.
it. You just need to figure out. You just need to be exposed to a bunch of different ones, and then you'll go from there. But you
Right.
can't go wrong
What
again
I'll
with like the classics.
what I'll tack on to is like I'm almost at this moment, I'm not even thinking about the what, but as far as like the where, like it's gonna take some picking and choosing and experimentation. But like if you think going in person secondhand or eBay secondhand works for you, you find it great. But I think like trying brands and seeing what works, like finding out, oh, Spear and McKay, a fairly affordable brand, like they're ready to wear, works
Not sponsored.
perfectly in the jacket off the rack. Yeah, but we're not sponsored, but I'll sing it to the mountains, just to like go and experiment to find things that like, oh, this
Yeah.
works for me, and like then because once you do that, then you're like, okay, now if I need my gray suit, I can go here for it because I know it'll work, and I don't have to brick a purchase or anything like that. I think
Right.
finding those things that
Yeah.
work for you, and then the other hand of it is like seeing stuff like Drake's, like, oh, that's great, and then
Yeah.
approximating that. It's like I'm not gonna pay $200 for their long point. I'm just gonna wear this OCBD that I found on eBay and just wear it like a long point for
Yeah.
$15. And same with just getting the knit ties and all that stuff. Find ways around it by approximating. But yeah, figuring out I think what the liking is, that's also important. So
And I think
yes.
approximating is important too because when you're approximating, you're put with unintentionally you're putting your own flavor to it. Because I
because
don't
you're
have
not a carbon copy of this. You're not just
right.
wearing it.
I
We
don't have
talked
this
about this
tie.
recently, I think, on
Yeah.
the Discord
we did.
because John was saying, and we were talking, I think, with Kiyoshi as well, where being dressed head to toe in a brand versus maybe similar things but like from different places, and I think I like
Yeah.
that more because you're able to put your own spin because not every brand is the same, and then the reason you pick those pieces are because they called out to you, so combining them in that way is a lot more fun than, again, like Matt said, being a carbon copy. Although sometimes you wear
Right.
like full Rick, there's still a lot of interpretation in how you wear full Rick or even how you wear full 18 East. So it depends on, as Kiyoshi said in the Discord, like the strength of the brand and its aesthetic and how easily it'll be changed. And I think with classic menswear it's a little bit harder and maybe easier, right? Like if you did all custom from the same place, maybe that would be different because then you could request different cuts or whatever. But then you might be able to, people can tell if you're wearing all Spear McKay, for example. So there's just different ways of approaching it.
And
What's
never go
another
full Rick.
question?
So we have from Kuhn. Oh, how would you say it? Kunnel X. That's how I'm gonna say your name.
Oh, that's
How did
Emmanuel.
you? Kunle X, aka Emmanuel, says, "How did you start learning about film photography?"
Ooh, and I think didn't Chris also ask what?
Well, that'll be a good secondary.
Oh, sure, yeah. So what drew me to film photography is, it's one of those things where I just initially I couldn't fathom doing it for myself, just like with like vintage, right? Like before I even knew that vintage existed, it was like, oh, I can recognize like horizontal peak lapels and white zip buttons, but clearly it doesn't exist anymore outside of like totally custom because you can't find it. And then all of a sudden you see people wearing it and you think it's custom, but it turns out it's just really well like well taken care of. It's vintage. It's a good condition is what I'm trying to say. So with like film, yeah, of course I love like on Tumblr. I've forgotten a lot of like the best photographers because I see so many pictures. I used to reblog them all the time. I used to look at Golden Era Suits, which is a blog started by my friend Florian, who has his own reproduction line in Germany, and he would reblog a bunch of like cool film photos. But it was like in my head, film seemed so like intricate and fussy, and you have to have like a dark room and everything. Like I just couldn't imagine, being into it without having all the whole process and putting a lot of money into it. And of course, with if you're a good, a good photo editor in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever, you could affect film. Which is what a lot of people on Instagram did, right? Like it does all those filters. You turn down the highlights, turn down the contrast, put some fade into it. But we have MJ and I have a friend Andrew who started shooting film. I don't know how he got into it, but it was really cool to see. He would bring it along and he would have some really cool pictures. And no offense to our friends, but I was like, okay, that's cool. We're still a bunch of nerds hanging out taking film pictures. But of course, then you see people like Chase or James Harvey Kelly or a bunch of other mentor photographers that like to use film, and you seeing it in that world, it's like, oh shit, this is actually really cool. And because we're all in this world, it's a little bit fake because not everyone dresses like us, right? But to me, it was like, oh, it's just like those old 1930s pictures of just people slouching around, playing poker, smoking
Had a
cigs,
phone in
whatever.
sight.
Yeah, yeah. But newspapers, everyone had one. But yeah, it was really cool to see that. And and again, no offense to my friends, but I don't have a lot of like creative friends that like that, at least in the realm of photography. Um, so it was like a very slow process for me. I wrote all about it in the blog post about the appeal of film photography. But yeah, I got into it because my friend got into it. Getting into it with Chase started out by buying, disposable film cameras, then point and shoot cameras, and then getting into the SLRs. And now I use all three of them at all times. There are pictures of me recently now that I just have like three. Like I have two camera strap, one digital, one film, and then I have like my point and shoot and my XA and like in my
I
breast
wasn't sure what the
pockets.
point and shoot was. Is that also film, or what is that?
Yeah, point and
point
shoot.
and
Yeah,
shoot.
so the
Yeah.
just for for people, I'm sure people.
Oh, the other one's the
will
35
know.
millimeter or something, right? Yeah.
Well, they're all okay. So they're all 35 millimeter film. They're all
Okay.
That's what they all are. A point and shoot means that it usually has like autofocus. You just literally you point and you take the picture. There's usually
Yeah.
flash and that's it. You don't it's automatic is a better way of saying it.
It's
Uh,
dramatic.
yeah. And then an
Oh
SLR is probably the
god.
closest you get to a digital because DSLR that's what it is. So it's a manual camera. You get to adjust shutter speed
Yeah.
and your
Right.
aperture. And then the ISO you can change that on a digital camera, but ISO in film is the film you put in there. So that one you don't you
Yeah.
just that
Yeah.
that's
It
you know
is
you
what
don't
it
have to worry
is.
about it. And the appeal, I mean, it's just because it's so intentional, right? It's like it's maybe it's kind of like bespoke where you're able to like after buying ready to wear you want to be able to have more control over it, right? That's kind of the appeal of it, and even if it's a little imperfect, that's okay too. I think especially nowadays, right, where you have like a lot of influencer stuff, or at least people who want their social media to be pretty, the little stuff in film because maybe you overexposed it and you can't. I mean, you can edit it if you scan it, but like if you print it out, you just that's it, right? Maybe you
Mhm.
misfocused. You can't fix that, right? You can't just take another one. You can't go back and reshoot, I should say.
Yeah, missing
So
focus on one film is just so nice.
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends, like if it's like an action shot or if it's like a regular portrait. For me, it's like it's because I get them printed out. It's like I want a really good picture that I can just cherish forever, and I'm always
I
kind
like
of
that
sad when
one
it's
of
just
it
not
was
in
the out of
focus.
focus one of you showing Chris something on your phone, and the phone and your face is out of focus. I thought that was kind of
Oh yeah,
cool.
those are fine. I mean, it always depends. I mean, it's also the photographer's style, and what they want to achieve with it. For me, I like doing both, but that's why I like digital, where I can take as much as possible. I mean, now I'm not as fussy.
Right.
I'm not gonna make you go back over there and stand like that.
Hmm.
But if it's like a proper portrait, if I have the ability to control it, then I want to try just a little bit. But that's just you can't change it after the fact, and that's kind of cool sometimes.
Mm.
I know what's like Scoops is asking if it's expensive. It depends what you mean by expensive. It's one of those things where if you get a digital camera, until it falls apart on you, you're not going to pay anything else. You could get it serviced if you want to, but most people, like most amateurs, don't do that. They just kind of leave it. With a film camera, you're buying film forever. So that's
Yeah.
like if you're considering that expensive, then yes, it's gonna because you're gonna be spending, each roll is between seven, like after tax, like $7 to $13, depending if you're getting like cheap stuff. If you're going Portra 400, you're getting 800 Cinestill, whatever. It all depends on that. And because the more you shoot film, um the more you get it developed, so you're constantly going to be in this loop of buying film, going through a roll, dropping it off, and paying for developing, scanning,
Yeah.
printing, whatever it is that you want. It's never going to end because you're into the hobby, just like, but because it's so different than clothes or even tech. You buy it and it lasts forever until the actual thing fails, and then you can buy a new one. um that's the thing, Scoops, with new lenses on DSLRs. I think a lot of people get into that too early, and I'm not trying. This is no offense, but there's a guy I know in the Asian American server who is, I think, constantly buying lenses. Like he's just always like he's like, oh, I gotta get this one, or he's doing Sigma and everything. And I don't think you need new lenses all the time. I think once you
I
get to a
have 2 lenses,
me too, yeah.
and it's all I've used.
It depends what you wanna get out of photography, It's like if you're a guy if you're pushing the boundaries of photography each time, then yeah, maybe you're constantly upgrading. But if your point is to take pictures, I think you're fine with just 1, 3 max, I think. Different focal lengths, port like, 50, 85, and then maybe like a telephoto for something, or whatever. Um so, I don't think you need to upgrade them because some of the Canon lenses are pretty good, like the ones that come from. I mean, you could get like the what's it called, the prime, with the USM lenses with the red ring. You could
Yeah.
spring for those if you want, but there are always a lot of alternatives. Some obviously some are sharper, but overall, I don't think it matters that much. I would say if you want to get better in photography, which this is that's a different question than upgrading your stuff, but that's more about learning not just post processing, but um, composition and lighting. That's what you should
Yeah.
invest your time into. Um, and I think you'll get there eventually. A lot of people do, but I honestly I don't think it's wise to just get into like buying because it's kind of like getting into menswear and then, okay, I know what it's supposed to look like, and then so you start buying everything from like Suit Supply and then you do suit, then you do Spirit, then you do bespoke, whatever. It's maybe sometimes it's okay for you to just spring on the bespoke or find something mid level and wear it till you feel like you need to upgrade it. Like don't feel pressured to constantly upgrade.
Right.
This goes with everything. I don't get how
Yeah.
I mean people like buy cars all the time. Like how do you guys do that? Like for me,
I
I'm
love
gonna
the
drive
term
this car, like,
starter car.
yeah, what the fuck? Like
Or like
Yeah.
starter
okay.
house. This is a good starter
Mhm.
house.
Yeah.
Well,
Like that's the
God.
most
Isn't the
privileged
point-
thing.
yeah.
It's like I don't even know if I'll ever be able to afford another house,
Yeah.
Right.
Or when people
That's
say
crazy.
budget, right? It's like that can mean anything.
So, yeah, what's that
You.
mean?
Yeah. Oh, I budget for
This is
my
my
for
budget. This
my
is my life
house.
savings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, in terms of the kit lens, just like starting from like H&M, yeah, you probably want to upgrade that. But I think even then, the kit lens is it's fine as long as you're getting the right bokeh or whatever that you want. But yeah,
I do
Well,
all of the product
yeah.
photography for the store on the kit lens for the Sony A30 6300.
There you go.
mhm.
All of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's,
and
it's
Sony.
the
I
only
mean,
lens I have. It's the only digital camera I have and the only lens I have for it. And I don't have to do like product photography for a store. I can't be spending that much money on film
Right.
processing and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd
Sam,
be
before we
broke.
move on real quick, Sam, do you have any quick thoughts on photography? Because you're a photographer too.
Not really. Just get a cheap camera and fuck around. That's
There
all
you
I
go.
do.
Fuck
Nice.
around and find out.
I
Fuck
like that.
around. All right, Matt. Let's keep going. Got about a little under 20 minutes left. What do we got? Well, we can go a little bit over. We can do 20 minutes because since we started a little bit late. But go ahead, Matt.
Well, really, this was wrapping up on sort of the film photography stuff. That's
Oh yeah, go ahead.
we've kind of burned through some of the menswear questions, so we're kind of in a good pocket. And we can touch back on other things too. So I guess since we're kind of here, I'll tack on that. People talk about like budgets and all that stuff. So I think that's because like I love that film look, but like having to go through getting all the new film for it, or even like fucking with Super 8 and all that stuff. Like that's expensive too for like the video angle, but it's a very psychological thing, like what's considered natural and what's affected. But I think at the end of the day, just having like a nice kind of like Sam said, like a cheap thing, or in whatever case, whatever camera you have on you. But my sort of setup is sort of like using a phone camera for a lot. But I do have like I'm not like a lomographer, and in that I don't subscribe to these lomography rules that they have because I thought that's a little annoying. But I do have a
That's
Polaroid
a thing?
camera. There's a lomography golden 10 rules or something like that. It's just like so it's very kitschy, and I don't there's a community behind it, but really what I like about the Polaroid camera, it is in like the square, a traditional square look, but I use it for just like not everything, but like just like special moments here and there, and especially in 2020 when I'm not doing a whole bunch and going out a lot, I'm finding some moments where I am able to like isolate a memory, and I think having a physical representation of that, just to like put on a wall, I think that's nice, as opposed to something I can just quickly take, I see in real life, and then I upload that to Instagram, and then there it is, or Discord, instead of laboring over developing and posting it. And I go back and forth with filters. I think if it enhances sort of the image or what it's trying to say, I think maybe some things are nice, but I'm sort of like getting back to really just letting whatever the thing is speak to itself. Just like if it's from an iPhone, just don't affect it, just upload it as it is, and that's what you got. So yeah, I mean, sure, if people get more means and all that, they could fuck with film a little bit more. But
Yeah.
there was one more film question. Have you looked into getting any new film cameras?
No. I mean,
I just bought one.
you bought a
What'd you get?
new one.
Well, I mean, the new one I bought was the one I got during the lockdown.
But
And
it's
then
not
I
a
bought it.
vintage film camera. It's a new camera.
Oh,
Should I check one now? This is a fun
sorry. I
one.
thought they meant like new to you.
Oh,
I thought that was the
I'll read
question.
it again. Have you looked into getting any quote new unquote film cameras? Question mark.
That's
So
probably
whatever that
Did it-
means to you.
it's probably
Does
new
anyone
to
make
you,
any
right?
new? Yeah, because I don't
new
think
to
there
me. Okay.
is anyone making
Well,
film cameras.
Yes,
Good cue.
I don't know.
'Cause
Probably.
even
Other than
Hasselblad's
like
not
those
Well-
making it.
cheap Fujifilm ones
yeah.
and
I was,
that.
Oh,
Right.
Fujifilm.
I was gonna say technically, they're
Because
just
like they're
retro,
new, but they're not very
but,
good.
yeah.
Right.
That's okay. Well, I mean, uh, since that article came out in August, which was, I wrote it, during mid lockdown. I was unemployed. I was just kind of, diving in deep into this new hobby of mine. Since then, yeah, I as I said earlier, I have uh, a Olympus XA, which is a little pocket rangefinder, really nifty. Only works in daylight, not only because it's aperture priority, so sometimes you have to. It'll if it's too dark, it'll automatically pick a really slow shutter speed. But it's really fun. And then for my SLR, my proper portrait camera, I use a Canon FTB because it's got through the lens metering as compared to the AE1, which is top down metering, which I think is stupid. Um, that's just I
Also,
just
this by the
I
way, this
agree.
question comes to us from Daniel _Troncoso03.
thank you, Daniel.
Congrats, Daniel.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not like Chase and a couple of other film guys where like they're always buying new film cameras. I'm like, it's not about like the tool for me. It's about like what I'm getting from it, which is probably also why I'm not like a tech guy. It's
Yeah.
like that's also why maybe that's why I've always been like an Xbox guy, like console, because you don't gotta do nothing to it, right? Like you don't gotta build
Right.
anything. You just
It's
do it.
built for you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you have to buy the next one when it comes out, but I know that some people upgrade the RAM, and I don't know. MJ can talk about that. But,
Right. A new
but
Xbox comes out once every few years. New
yeah,
RAM,
yeah. I
they're
mean,
always making that shit.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Follow my stream for Tech Talk.
There you go,
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Which streams at the same
But
time.
yeah, I don't think I want another one. I mean, my point shoot's really good. The autofocus is nice on it. Everything I have is pretty sturdy. They were almost dead stock when I got them, so they're gonna last a long time, and they produce some pretty great images. I mean, excuse me, I think maybe I would try different types of film, but honestly, like
If it ain't broke.
if I just my whole thing is I just want to shoot my friends to death, allegedly.
parody.
Just kidding. Parody. But no, I just want to take pictures of the people I hang out with, and I want to do
Yeah.
it as much as possible, and that usually means I pick like pretty cheap film. I just got my first black and roll film developed
Black and
recently.
roll?
Black and
Black
white.
and
God
roll,
damn it,
black and roll.
I'm losing it already. But yeah, I think I really like it. So now because I have an AE1 and an FTB, now I'm like, oh, now I have a reason to get my AE1 back in the business because when you have one DSLR, you just put whatever you have in that. But now I could like simultaneously shoot black and white and color. I just bring both with me. So now I'm gonna
Right.
have 5
Irregular
cameras.
Aziz Ansari.
Fuck.
You gotta break into
camera
you gotta break into the into medium format with the module. So I have I use a Mamiya 645, and so it's
Uh-huh.
you can pull all the pieces apart and put different pieces together. It's like a set of Legos. So I can have a few different film like canisters, and I can take it off without exposing the film and put a different one on.
Oh,
so if
that's
I wanna-
cool.
I
So,
can't
so
tell
like
if
if
this
you're
is
if
good
you're
or not.
done with the day, and like, oh, I don't want to shoot black and white the rest of my day, you can put color in or whatever.
Yeah, I can throw that. I can
Perfect,
throw it
that's
on the
great.
back with having loading it. I've loaded it all already, and then all I gotta do is slap that back on. And that's
Yeah.
what like a lot of big fashion photographers back in the day, because medium format was like the format they used for like
To shoot
magazines and
magazines. Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
And so they would just, you'd walk into a studio with like, with these big photographers, and they would have just like tables of the backs for the cameras, like the Hasselblads or the Mamiyas. And they would just be, they give you a spent one, you throw another one on. But medium format's expensive because, on the 645, you only get 16 shots per roll of film.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
People
Um,
people in the
but-
chat, if you have
And
questions
it's more
in
expensive
our
to
last
develop.
10,
Yeah,
please
quick
put
fire
them in
them.
chat, and
10 minutes right here.
MJ
Matt, I
can
do
pull
want.
some.
Yeah, Matt, I
Yes.
do want to say your thing about posting those pictures of the Polaroids. That's why I got into film too, because I wanted to. I still do every single roll I've shot for the past year have been printed on a 4x6 like glossy, like
Okay.
like the 90s, and I think that's so much fun. With Polaroids, I think it's a little bit because you can't really bring that everywhere. You can't
Yeah.
control the focus very often. And so that's why I never got it. Plus, like I didn't own one, and at the time I already owned a film camera, so it was like
Right.
might as well just do with what I got.
Right.
But yeah, I think Matt, I think you should get it if you want to try it. I think you should get into at least a point and shoot, because then you'll have a little bit more control than a Polaroid. You won't get it instantly, but you'll still have like that flash, the very candid
Yeah.
nature, autofocus with a point and shoot. And I mean, I got mine for $20 on eBay. Like that's even cheaper than a Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
Right.
No, totally.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's all camera talk. I'm always happy to talk about it. Thank you to Emmanuel and Chris and Daniel for submitting those. And by the way, if you guys haven't read it, check out my article, or I guess editorial with Chris, also a big film photographer guy. Really great stuff. Really stylish guy. It's right on the blog, so you'd expect to read about it because he's my current muse. So I've been sure, yeah. Like people have been saying, you've been posting that guy Chris. I'm like, yeah, because he's fucking great. He looks good and takes a good picture. Like, come on.
MJ, did
we
we get
do-
any questions?
We did
Not
not.
yet. Not yet.
All right.
We do have a question though.
Oh.
That was sent here. From the sad one. There's only two. But it'll be enough time. Philip asks, well, maybe we'll finish off with Philip. So I'll do the menswear one first. John says, if you could have bespoke clothing made by anyone, who and what would you choose? And we've said this a little bit, but let's kind of go through. I'll answer it at the end of it. Heinrich, what would it be for you? Bespoke from anybody
Bespoke? Goodness.
and anything.
Would I have made bespoke if I had the option? No, actually, I do know the answer to that question. I would have Hungarian shoes made by Altwiener Schuhmanufaktur, the Viennese traditional shoemaker. I used to see them when I got drunk in bars as a student. I would walk home and he would go past this. One of the last bespoke shoemakers in the Central European tradition, like not just London. One in Budapest, there's one in Vienna. I think that maybe there's one in Madrid, but I don't think so. Which is like super chunky styles. You've seen them in. Us still sells them. That brand out of Budapest, but it's like kind of a forgotten style because no one really makes them anymore. You know what I'm talking about?
Can you type it
They're
out
called
somewhere?
Budapester shoes. They're called Budapester shoes. But
Budapester shoes.
that's the name of the style of the shoe. But,
Okay.
the
Taking a look here. Okay, my internet sucks. Oh, okay. Oh no, there we go. Oh, interesting. These are, I mean, wait. Yeah, they look like derbies, like wingtip derbies. Is that right?
yeah, but they're often in like a very rough pebble grain. So, I mean, it's something that's
Yeah.
always
Oh,
I always want,
so
and
good.
they do last absolutely forever. They're like though I don't know what they were prohibitively expensive back then, but if that sort of would be nice. But for clothes, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to have work up the guts to go into Anderson and Shepherd or something, but I don't know if that's
What you
ever going to
want.
happen, or whether that's going to be a good idea. If I had the money,
Right. Yeah.
I have no idea actually where that would take me.
Ivan, what about you? What would it be for you if you're still with us?
There's this Dutch tailor, bespoke tailor on Instagram. He's called Tom van Hethoff, and he
Yep.
like makes like vintage bespoke tailoring, and like there's so much I want him to make for me. Like I couldn't choose. Probably like a tweed 4-piece suit and like a ginger tweed. That would probably be it.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stuff. There's also like a Swedish tailor too that did some suits for the guys at A Marchand. I don't know what, like, it's some vintage store in Sweden, I think.
Oh yeah, I know what you're
Uh,
talking about.
yeah, and he just did a sports suit with like with the quad flapped patch pockets, which I think is pretty dope.
Oh, so
But
good.
yeah, no, I think yeah, vintage period suits I think are pretty cool. Jason, what about you?
Ed Sexton all the way, baby.
Okay, very
Of
nice.
course,
Yeah, I'd
even with
have
the
a
shoulders.
even with the shoulders. If it's,
Wow. Okay.
I'd be fine with it because it's it's his piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
letting the master do it.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I would. And, I wouldn't even like tell him what I wanted. I would just say, "What do you want to give me?" You know, because like he did some like he did. There's that pink suit that Harry Styles wears a lot. That
Right.
everyone's
Yeah.
like everyone assumes was Gucci because he wears it, but it's not. It's Edward Sexton. I mean, I can tell by looking at it, but man, yeah,
Right.
I would do like any like suit by him would be so nice.
Very cool. Kiyoshi.
Hey,
Welcome.
coming in late. Um,
Hey,
hi guys. So since Jason took my first answer, and I kind of have the same attitude as he does about just let the tailor do his thing. I would just be like double-breasted. You figure it out. Let me know what you
right.
think will look cool.
Yeah.
Give me a fabric that no one else can get. I'm just gonna take it across the ocean and go to Dapper Dan in Harlem. Clearly a bunch of style and a level of fabric, and he's got all that Gucci stuff now. But I would just love to see like what Dapper Dan would want to make for me to make me look cool in a Dapper Dan way. Because I kind of feel like Dapper Dan's getting up there in age, and his business, his style, his sense of fashion is not going to be around forever. He could
Right.
pass at some time. And I would love to have a Dapper Dan one of one unique suit from a guy who's a goddamn legend, made just for me. And I love that idea that like a person who's made a name for himself as like a rebel, even though it's not my normal style, like
Right.
having that kind of creator do something for me, knowing me and like working through that process with him to like have Dapper Dan like basically style me and dress me, I think would be very fucking cool, like head to toe,
Yeah.
even down to the glasses I'm wearing. Like I would be all in. Like I would fully lean to the Dapper Dan look. I would love like a head to toe fit. Um, that would be my thing. I think I just think
Yeah,
that'd
I'd
be
be on
fun.
board with that. That'd be cool as hell. Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
I think like for sober, like classic menswear tailoring, I would probably go with some sort of like house style in Naples or something. I don't have a specific one in mind, but I think there's like we're talking a lot about suit silhouettes and German versus French and American, and I just feel like at the end of the day, Italian suits a lot of my needs. But but now but now I'm just thinking, well, like that's for like the like more traditional looks, but I also just like the idea of like having like a complete like Tom Brown wardrobe and just like wearing a lot of that stuff for the more fun things or even just fun takes on classic menswear. So I like that idea too. And mixing, a little bit here and there of the more traditional with the more fun. So I feel like that's something I could fuck with.
Okay. How about you, MJ? Ever Gems.
Um,
Gross.
we're getting Yoji.
We're
Yeah.
getting Yoji.
You
Make
should
all
just go
the
to Yoji and just say whatever you
Oof.
want, make it
yeah,
for me.
make all the streetwear guys cry. Um, but yeah,
Look like a
I
real
don't.
life anime goth
Yeah,
character,
see,
dude.
it's gonna be
Give me big titties.
it's gonna be they're gonna be like, why are you just like a Final Fantasy character, bro? I'm gonna be like, dude, don't you know that this is Yoji's like one of one? Like, come on.
Yeah.
But
That's pretty cool.
Uncultured.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
since I'm not since I don't have such a big in yet with bespoke stuff, that's my answer.
It makes sense, right? Yeah. Sam, what about you?
So we can have anything we want made bespoke by
Yeah,
anyone,
clothing.
right?
Yeah, menswear. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, if it was anything and not clothing, I'd have a 10-ton gold bar made, sell it, and then I'd be able to try one of everything
Yeah,
from
then you're good.
everyone.
Monkey's paw.
Yeah.
Nice.
From you, I take your confidence. Yeah.
Probably, though,
but-
in the tailoring sense, the house that I see the most consistently flawless fits from would be WW Chan, so I'd probably choose them.
Good.
And
Okay. Yeah.
just something that I would wear all the time. So something pretty simple, like brown flannel 3-piece. Something that I would wear every day. If I'm going to have one bespoke piece, I want it to be something that I wear all the fucking time, not
Right.
a wardrobe ornament.
Right. Cool. That's good answer. I do like WW Chan. I've met Patrick during a trunk show. I felt like I was taking up his time because trunk
You
shows
were.
are packed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, as we said, yeah. We need to go find that book again. I'll have Sam or we'll put it somewhere that you guys can read it because that's like knowing what it's like in the world of tailoring and traveling, trunk shows, and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think I would love if I'm talking like a totally Ethan answer, uh, it'd probably be like either Anderson and Shepard or something, or Taylor Cade. I think would be more what I would get like a bespoke suit. I don't know if I need it. That's the thing. Like a lot of the stuff, like I don't need any of this stuff. Maybe I
Right.
mean, the more if I'm being like okay, if I'm being safe, it's like a bespoke suit, Taylor Cade. If I'm being practical, it would be bespoke tassel loafers. That way they would fit and they wouldn't hurt me or have any issues. But I'm a pretty good 7D in the Aberdeen last, so not that bad. Um, I don't need like a bespoke shirt. I mean, I do have bespoke shirts, but if I could just have like one, I mean, I think MJ's answer is honestly pretty intriguing. I don't know what designer that would be. I don't know if it would be like something kind of like 18 Easty in a sense, kind of or engineered garments where like I just kind of make something and based on what they know about me and they make it one of one, and I think that would be kind of cool. To have like whatever this like reinterpretation of like wide fit Evan Kenory style, like Japanese kind of inspired workwear milsurp tailoring combination. I think that would be pretty cool if I could find a designer who would say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is it. This is what I think Ethan would wear." But I might hate it too. So like I need to be
Too
involved in that
avant-garde.
process. But to be able but maybe that's the thing. If I could be involved in the process, I think it would be pretty cool. And not in a way that takes away from the designer, but that way, we can find it in that way because I think maybe I just have too much taste in my arrogance to fully give it to someone
Right.
else. Yeah, to it's kind of like even though it's still hard, not always, but if I'm working with a photographer that I've seen the style of, I don't ask. Maybe that's it because I'm so used to people who aren't photographers who have to take my pic. Like if I have to get an outfit pic, I have to like, hey, can you take it like this? So and MJ knows that, but it's maybe it's
know.
about finding that one. It's about finding that photographer who you're like totally okay with taking your picture. Like you don't have to see it, like and maybe I'm still on that journey. That's kind of the joy of fashion, right? It's never really done. Kill the past.
Let it die.
It's true.
We have so we'll finish up at 10:05. So you have one last minute. Oh, Guilty for Gaming says you get some bespoke PJs and bedrobe like that I work for. Hey, that's not bad too. Although PJs are meant to be like big fit. I mean, for me, I don't want to fit in PJ. It's got to be super like baggy and
Listen,
stretchy.
I need my PJs need to have the biggest bulge.
Yeah.
I gotta
Right.
show these. Gotta show who's boss in this house.
Wait, you want them to be tight so they could see your bulge, is what you're saying?
Battle of the Bulge.
Right, or padded.
Yeah. So the final question is something we'll just get through one. You'll have one answer, only one answer, and I will answer
As
last.
opposed to
of
all our
course.
multiple answers.
Yeah, but Philip asks us, "What is your favorite ice cream topping? Not flavor, topping." Heinrich, do you have one?
No, topping is an abomination. Don't do that.
Wow.
Oh,
The right ice cream. For God's
he's
sake.
he's of the he's a purist.
He's a
He's a
purist.
purist.
Oh my god.
Ice cream Nazi over here.
Hey,
I
that's
absolutely
parody.
like. Oh, when I go to the sort of American ice cream stands and all this stuff comes out, it's like no.
I
You make a
get
valid
it.
point, man.
I
Like,
get
all the
it.
best ice creams I've had, I don't want flavour on. Well, I don't want topping on because you buy it because of that specific flavour, not to fuck it up with sprinkles or some shit.
Okay.
Yeah, we got Swoon saying purists and what's it called?
I mean,
Taylor
I
also
would
don't
actually have a
like
favourite
toppings.
ice cream topping, just not if I've bought a specific flavour.
Right.
I was
Well,
gonna jump in and say the toppings are reserved for certain flavors of ice cream.
Like vanilla.
yeah, absolutely.
But I do have certain flavors that are just just the plain ice cream.
Yeah. I like solid and straw. I'm sure everyone has their own version of it, but like 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 getting seasonal stuff or getting like the flavors that they actually make, I think are way cooler than putting stuff on it. But hey, you're at the fair and they're only serving vanilla, but they have a whole tray of toppings. It's like what do you pick? Ivan.
Milo. Ooh,
I like
big
my
shout out.
ice cream pure.
What the hell's wrong with these people?
This is hilarious.
Who all these people?
Jason, what about you? What do you put it on?
Listen, I am a rainbow sprinkles
listening.
man.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
Or
on
Jimmy's?
or Jimmy's. I mean, that's what I grew
Yeah.
up calling them, but I wasn't sure if that was appropriate for the
Shout outs
stream.
to
No, you picked
Jimmy's.
the right one.
No, we're down
I
for
regret
Jimmy's.
saying it.
We're down for Jimmy's.
Yeah, down for Jimmy's. So, yeah, they got that. They give it a little bit of crunch. They give that tiny bit of crunch to an otherwise soft meal.
That texture.
And I say meal specifically.
I've never heard anyone say ice cream. It's a soft meal.
It is.
Yeah, that's a new one.
You're not wrong. It's
Okay,
just
Grandpa.
like oh man, you know that I don't know. Yeah. Kiyoshi, what do you got for yours?
So I have a very specific topping. And I don't know how many people are going to be identified with this because I don't know how many people are near a Dairy Queen or Brazers. Not
I'm sorry.
not the pornography.
One more time.
I'm sorry.
Click away.
Hey,
I
that's
feel like-
that's parody, by the
Who
way.
pays for
Yeah.
browsers?
But Dairy Queen, it's a very Midwestern ice cream
Yeah.
chain. I think Matt probably
Love
knows
Dairy
what
Queen.
it is.
Yeah.
They have something called a quote unquote crunch cone, which is basically they take their standard soft serve and they dip it in this crunchy sprinkled mixed with very finely minced peanuts and also like basically like a Rice Krispie almost. It's a bit more dense than a Rice Krispies, but like
As a
Krispies
cone?
thing that it's kind of it just covers the topping of the cone.
Okay.
They call it a crunch cone, quote unquote. And I don't
I've
know.
not heard
I
of
always
this.
loved it. I've loved it ever since
Okay.
I was a kid. That would be my go-to. I've really only ever had it on soft serve. I don't know how well it works on other flavors or
Right.
more thicker, more dense versions of ice cream. But that is my go-to if I have a topping on a cone. It is very specifically the Dairy Queen crunch cone topping. Yeah,
Respect.
which like
They
two
also
people
flip
probably
that
know what I'm
upside
talking
down
about.
3 times.
Respect.
Matt, what do you
I
got?
forgot about that. Again, to clarify, not an ice cream like cookies. What do you call it? Cookies and cream is a type of ice cream. Cookie dough is a
Yes.
topping, and that's what I pick. Cookie dough. As far as the topping goes, it's a really
Is cookie dough
really
a
good one.
topping? I don't
Does
think
it-
cookie dough
It's
is
a,
a
it's
topping.
look,
I thought-
it's vanilla ice cream, and you have cookie dough. That is a topping. It's
Are you
not
even
Wait,
supposed
what
to
is it?
eat cookie dough?
What is it?
It's
Cookies
some-
and cream? Is it
Some,
cookies and cream?
some
Just regular
places
vanilla?
do. Some
No,
places
cookies and
do
cream is
have
Oreo.
it as a topping. Same thing as getting like crushed Oreos on your
I
ice
think it's
cream.
usually
You-
more of a
you
topping
order-
at like frozen yogurt places.
You order a cookie dough ice cream, but that just sound like, oh, well, can I get a cookie dough topping? Like they treat it like an ice cream, but really it's a topping. You know what I'm saying? It's vanilla ice cream with cookie dough.
I'll
I
let
don't
it
know what you're
slide.
talking
I'll let
about,
it
but okay.
slide.
I agree with
MJ,
Matt. I'm on Matt's
Alright.
side.
Thank you, MJ.
MJ, what's
Someone has
yours?
a
Let's
brain.
finish up.
We're going for a classic chocolate hot fudge. Hot chocolate, hot
Ah,
fudge,
yeah.
The
chocolate.
hot fudge.
The
Look at
hot
that.
fudge melts the ice cream a little
Then
bit.
you're
I don't
eating
like that
it
shit.
too
Yeah, but
slow,
you like that
Jason. I don't know what
juxtaposition.
you're saying.
Okay.
I actually like my ice cream a little bit
Uh,
melted.
Yeah, see, there we go.
What?
It's the
Yeah, but he also
contrast.
likes
I
likes it a
know, I
little
know.
melted with no topping. Man's
See, I-
drinking milk.
see, okay, I'm not. This is this. Before, we're gonna get to Sam in a second. We're gonna get to Sam, but I want to say, for me, if I had the option of one instead of the hot fudge, it would be the alamo. It would be a brownie on the bottom. That's where I want the melted, like it melts down and you eat
Yes.
that, and then
Yes.
that's good.
The
But that's
sponge of
what's
ice
happening.
cream.
Okay, Sam, what is yours?
Vegemite.
Oh my, fuck
And
you.
then, okay,
Fuck you.
play us out, Ethan.
Don't
Play
put
us out.
Vegemite on ice cream.
That's
Fuck
thank you for
you.
watching.
Oh, fuck you.
And if you
Good
believe that, I've
God.
got a bridge to sell you.
Fuck you.
Oh,
Fuck that.
Nah, I
Jesus.
Alright,
fucking
wrap
love
it up. Are
Milo.
we done?
Milo's great.
Are
What?
we done? Marlo?
Milo.
Marlo. Marlo and me. Sorry.
What
Alright.
what is that?
What? Oh shit! You guys don't have
No,
Milo,
you don't
do
know
you?
what Milo
Fuck.
is, Ethan?
And Otis.
Milo?
The chocolate,
that?
the powdered chocolate drink.
It's like a powdered chocolate
Oh,
drink
oh,
made from
oh,
barley
okay, yeah.
malts.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
okay,
yeah, it's
okay.
like chocolate malt.
Like
So when I
Nesquik?
was a kid, yeah, kind
Yeah.
of like Nesquik, but tastes 10 times
Okay.
better. When I was growing up here,
Hmm.
McDonald's used to
Art.
do the McFlurry with a Milo in it. And mixing that Milo through just their vanilla ice cream was the best shit. And still to this day, even though they discontinued it probably 15 years ago, that's what I'll do.
Wow.
If I've got vanilla ice cream, I'll dump 3 tablespoons of Milo on it and then mix it all through to make my own.
Okay.
Okay.
Shout outs to Milo.
So my
still
my
ratcheting
answer,
things about the
if
other
we're
one.
if we're assuming vanilla is the base here, I'm
Yes.
gonna have to say, um, I'm kind of digging like cereal, like that
Like a
could be
Fruity
Fruity
Pebbles?
Pebble. It could be Fruity Pebbles. Could be like
Alright.
Captain Crunch. I kind of dig that kind of
Alright, I'm trying to
combination there.
eat ice cream, not tear my mouth open.
How do you think you absorb the ice cream, Jason?
With your blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is apparently like a southern thing because I had an ex who put like milk in her ice cream and mashed it up.
What?
Apparently,
And this is
they
why
do
she's
that.
the ex.
It's
This is
cold
why-
milk.
It's cold
Got
milk.
it,
Her and
got it.
Ivan
Adam
should get
cold milk.
together.
Yeah, match made in heaven.
My runner-ups were gonna be Snickers, but I thought, like we talked about, how a topping could change the flavor, and that would just make it Snickers ice cream, basically.
Yeah.
Another runner-up
If
would
vanilla
be,
was with cookie dough, then chocolate ice cream should be with Reese's peanut butter cups, not the pieces. Like that's a runner-up topping for me. Having those peanut
Yeah.
butter cups.
That's a yeah.
Okay.
That's up
No,
there.
yeah,
I'll put
I've-
that up there.
that's
Yoshi, do you like
up-
Culver's?
That's in there.
Culver's is
Josh.
fire. It's the best fast food chain that isn't in enough places. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I know.
you
and
can
that
take
costs-
your Wendy's, you
it's-
can take your Arby's, you can take your
Wendy's
Carl's
top tier.
Jr., your crappy In-N-Out. Like, Culver's is coming
Culver's
for all
is
of
known
you.
for its custard and
Butterburger
also
all
smash
day.
burgers. Yeah, with the Butterburger
like-
style of smash burger.
Like,
Never heard of it.
I know it's kind of a
well,
Midwest, but it's really
I'm
good.
sorry you've had to eat
It's a godsend.
inferior fast food. Like, sorry. Like,
Well,
Well, I
I'm
don't
taking
eat
points
fast
away.
food.
I'm taking points away for you putting In-N-Out in the same list as Arby's. Just letting you know. I was
that's-
with you.
you're on a
I
list
was with
now.
you. I was there.
MJ,
I was
trash
there.
is trash. Trash
Oh
is trash.
shit!
Nope.
Oh my!
Oh,
about Shake Shack?
absolutely not.
I'm banning Kiyoshi for.
Okay,
For New York, Shake Shack is great, but LA
gonna
burgers
wrap it
are
up
great.
now. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions for this. I know we haven't. It's been a while since we've done an AMA, and usually they're almost always Mentor related. But I love not only that we had a variety of questions, but we had all of our friends here to join us. You can see all of the Instagram handles of everyone in the on air, whether it's
Yeah.
voice only or visual.
Yep, they're
For our
here.
SNL like talk show.
That's right. for our SNL like talk show apparently.